Boba Fett? Well, like Boba Tea. Let's get straight into it. Was the show any good? Well, actually, that's hard to answer. Now, the thing with this show is that it kind of feels like they had this great idea and rushed it into production. But shortly after actually starting work on it, they noticed that the idea is not enough to fill the whole project. Sort of like, well, the sequels. What I'm trying to say is when Boba Fett was reintroduced in The Mandalorian Season 2, everyone seemed to love it. Going back even further though, with only a couple of minutes of total screen time in the original trilogy, the character had garnered a huge fan base, which was expanded upon in additional media. Because if you look at the movies alone, Boba Fett is this dude in a dope armor who excels in looking cool, mainly by not saying anything and looking like he is on top of things. But he really just went down like a little bitch in a moment of comedic relief. So naturally, everyone wanted to pretend that never happened. This badass bounty hunter was killed because a blind Han Solo was doing the 360 no-scope with his arms? That isn't Boba Fett. That didn't sit right. So of course he must have climbed out that pit and survived the impossible. But then we see him again in the prequels and learn he's a clone of this pretty cool bounty hunter named Django, who, well, dies pretty quickly too. So really the bulk of the content that presents this guy as a badass was in the imagination of the people watching and the extended universe in which Boba Fett was portrayed as a character people were seeing him as. But then Disney bought Lucasfilm and said, nah, all those stories are now legends. You know, like those bedtime stories you may read to your children. And when Disney started production on a bunch of Star Wars projects, a bunch of rumors started rumbling about a Boba Fett movie. Finally, we get to see this badass bounty hunter in all his glory. Until Disney axed the whole project, you know, sort of like Mace Windu did. Years went on, Disney started fumbling the back, and then The Mandalorian happened. The project was supposed to promote Disney's new service, Disney Plus, and surprisingly it was a huge success. It seemed as though everyone was extremely satisfied with the direction the show went in, with it generating two now very recognizable characters in Djarin and Grogu. Here's the thing, Mando was basically just Boba Fett with a reskin, a badass Mandalorian bounty hunter. Now of course there can be multiple of those, and yeah, there is extended lore that proves that. But to the general audience, Boba Fett just became Boba Who. Until, of course, he was reintroduced to them in a way that left people impressed. Holy shit, this old guy is like the Mandalorian, but like, cooler? He seemed more experienced and possibly even more interesting than the guy we were following. And of course, right, he is the Bilpin. But here comes the problem. Do you really want two of the same guy? Fighting about which one is cooler? But because that just means that the guy you just turned into a pop culture darling is in danger of becoming second fiddle to the old dude with all this baggage included. So what do? Well, Disney decided, what if this old dude has had enough? Yeah, leave the spotlight to Mando, he can do all this fancy new stuff. But we didn't just want to leave that Boba Fett money on the table. People wanted a Boba Fett movie forever, so let's just do that. And let's even end the Mandalorian season with a teaser for it. That'll get people hyped. They'll connect the universe full of all the badasses you can imagine. Yeah, Boba Fett will rule the underworld of Tatooine, while Mando goes on his greater adventures. Get the whole gangster show about it. Hell, the teaser for it is just him straight up murdering a dude in cold blood and taking the throne. Now that's a great starting point. Guys, this is going to be amazing, right? Only problem is, how do we even differentiate these two guys? You can't just have two Mandos running around basically acting the same exact way. You start writing Boba Fett a tragic backstory of how he became soft. Found a family, the kid who basically had millions of brothers, who he wasn't allowed a connection to, found actual family.
Like a Benza. Yes.
By the way, I know he had a sister in animated shows, but I'm mainly focusing on live action stuff because I feel like that's what most people know. You see his newfound family that saved him and that he worked with for a while get brutally murdered, to which his reaction is killing the people he thought did the murder. That's pretty ruthless, right? See, it's just kind of a thing that happens. Call me crazy, but it just doesn't seem like Boba Fett is much of a character in the show. Yeah, of course, he is in the literal sense of the word. He has arcs and does things, but he also doesn't seem very aged at all. Most of the time, he just does what people tell him, which of course could be a character trait. He doesn't want to argue, cause any problems, but then he shouldn't be able to succeed at what he's doing, right? Being a leader of the underworld seems kind of difficult if you're just cosplaying as Jim Carrey in Yes Man.
What?
But okay, this is how they wrote him in an effort to differentiate him from Mando, which is fine. It just doesn't make for a very interesting character. The character just kind of seems flat. This does though very fun to watch. He doesn't have very complex feelings or goals, and the ones that he does have don't seem to be very established in any clear way. Structure of the show doesn't really help the show much either. See, the point of a flashback is usually to reveal some twist or explain things that will give added context to the present. But the way the show is structured, I feel like we could have just gotten a linear show from his escape to becoming the man he is today without having the constant whiplash of going back and forth, since there really isn't any real point to the flashbacks other than allowing the show to have Boba Fett in present day walk around the suit of armor. And then there's a thing about this also functioning as a Mandalorian 2.5. And if this show has been sort of lackluster, the whiplash of seeing the guy who took over the mantle of this badass bounty hunter might be pretty rough. And yeah, Immediately the tone shifts. We care about the Mandalorian's goals. We like seeing him succeed and fail and hurt and learn. There's actually things happening that seem to be actively affecting the character. And Boba Fett is none of this. So the next episode goes even further with it. Now we not only get to see Mando, we see so many characters people seem to love. They're doing pretty interesting things. These guys are showing emotions and I buy it. The people on the internet were quick to say, oh, the Book of Boba Fett really doesn't seem to have much Boba Fett in it. Which yeah, he wasn't in 2 of his show's episodes. Well, he did kind of sort of cameo in the second one. And they made it out to be a bad thing, but here's the actual problem. Why are people upset that another character is taking over from Boba Fett? Well, because they're enjoying this one more, which is weird. The argument seems to be that Mando and Grogu and Luke and are stealing screen time away from Boba Fett on his own show. But that is not the problem of this show. It's not that it doesn't have enough time. The main issue has been how they use this time. See, of course, having more episodes could mean they could flesh things out more, but I personally found that the episodes about Boba Fett's struggle just seemed underwhelming in itself, and it wasn't because there wasn't any time. Mainly because I again didn't think he was written in a very compelling way, and the storyline they chose to tell could have been interesting, but the stakes never seemed too clear. Why does Boba Fett really care for this planet? He's trying to stop the criminal trade that he would need to run his criminal empire, though he's not trying to be a king of the underworld. Maybe just trying to be a king of Tatooine and rule in an honorable way. Get the drugs off the street. Okay, but why? Because of Tuskens? Who were never really welcomed into the city anyway? Most people he is trying to protect here will probably try to kill his old friends. It's weird, we see him almost die multiple times here, but it doesn't seem to connect with me. When Mando burns off his skin and we see him walk away, I am interested to see how his journey continues. When Boba Fett gets his ass beaten for the 5th time, I don't really care that much, and it's really hard to explain why. I feel like we don't get enough time with Boba actively reacting to his surroundings. Like he doesn't even know why he's doing what he's doing. See, Cad Bane, who by the way managed to be much more of an intriguing character in the few scenes he had, kind of shared some of the criticism people laid out for Boba Fett's character. But his answers to those questions didn't seem very clear. His angle on all this never seemed that obvious to me, so rooting for him never seemed logical. See, the final episode goes back to putting a flawed focus on Boba Fett, and I felt that the whole battle kind of felt pointless. Having a big battle as the climax of the show makes sense, but having it be people ducking behind cover, shooting their guns at each other is a really boring way to do so. This might just be a personal preference, but having people duck behind cover and shoot each other has the same entertainment value to me as just turning the TV off. I just don't care. You have 2 guys with jetpacks here and an arsenal of interesting weapons, a huge hulking dog, and a bunch of cyberpunk extras running around. Cool, let them do interesting stuff. But no. Yes, the 2 dudes do fly around for a bit, and sometimes they even use more interesting ways to take out the camp fodder. But between these moments of creativity, such as Boba running into battle on the Rancor, we had so much filler that took out the air from it. To me, the best action scenes usually are a much smaller scale. While large action scenes can be interesting to watch, I need to either see some bonkers creativity on display with a lot of interesting choreography and cinematography to keep my monkey brain entertained, or I just need to feel the stakes of the situation. In a more intimate fight between 2 people, the stakes usually feel higher because the scene focuses on only these 2 individuals. Tensions get high, and only one of them will make it out alive. And this episode actually gave us some of that, but even that didn't feel that earned, because Cad Bane waited for everything to be over to come face Boba Fett, and he wins. And then he just walks up to Boba Fett, and yes, it is cool seeing Boba Fett win with the skills that he learned in his new life, but it kinda seemed unearned. I don't know. And then there's the problem with people just running away from slowly moving machines, shooting in a barrier that clearly isn't penetrable. Just seems that so goofy and doesn't serve much of a purpose to him. Feels like what I do in a video game if I'm stuck and don't know what my next objective is. Now, what is the point that I'm actually trying to make here? Should this show never existed? Well, maybe. See, I'm not sure if I would recommend people watch this show in full. What I 100% will always recommend are episodes 5 and 6. And if that's how many people feel, we could have just seen that at the start of The Mandalorian Season 3. I'm not saying I don't care about Boba Fett. I actually think he should get a TV show. One that feels more personal with a more obvious threat that feels more tangible. The actress actually seems very passionate and nice, and so does Fennec's actress, whose character really is the shining star of the Boba Fett section of the show. The scene of her taking out the crime lords is so fun to watch, and I wish the show gave me more of that. Look, at the end of the day, the actual Book of Boba Fett is great. If that was his attitude throughout this whole show, I probably would have enjoyed things more.
Following offer. Nothing.
And that is not to say that he can't be a nice guy. Hell, I thought it was cute how he helped out the mod kids. But this nice guy attitude left the show with little tension. And I would like to feel something watching my favorite entertainment thing in the world. Star Wars has always played a huge part in my life, and I'm glad to see it continue. I just hope the people working on it take their time to flesh out a plan. Now, to wrap things up, do I think the Book of Boba Fett is a bad show? No. Most of the show is average, and the 2 episodes of Mandalorian in between here are actually amazing Star Wars content. If the writers took their time to flesh out the actual story of the Book of Boba Fett, this could have been pretty amazing. But as it stands right now, I can't really recommend this show to anyone unless they're a huge Star Wars nerd. And that sucks, because The Mandalorian is not like that. Anyway, guys, I was gonna say may the force be with you, but I'm kind of cringing thinking about it. So, see ya, guys.